Shotty V, Shotty V, Shotty V.
Not being able to try out, what happened next? Like, what made you decide to continue the conversation and bring awareness to your experience of being bullied and being targeted for racism?
So, in my head, I was still very naive, but my mom, throughout everything, like my mom was like, well, at this, after it got to a certain point, she's like, well, you need to start keeping a little diary of everything that happens that you can cite back to the location, who said it, everything, because I just don't think this is going to go the way that you're thinking. And in my head, my way of thinking was at first, I'm going to be so nice. I'm going to change your heart. Kumbaya. And then when it
Right.
got to that certain point, I was like, well, you know what, mom, I'm just going to work even harder at ball. And then they're going to see, like, she really is going to be an asset. And again, my mom's like, well, nobody's going to be like, you're so good, Jazz. I want you to have my position. But I was young.
You're
So
looking at the glass half full. I get it.
oh
Your
yeah,
optimism, I
totally.
can feel your warm fuzzies all over this situation. Like, kudos to your parents for, raising such a warm, inclusive
Thank
child
you.
to be the recipient of all this negativity and hate. And you're still just like, it's cool, man. Love. Like, love will conquer all. Hard work will conquer all. Like, I love that. I love that.
But so first we met with the administration because even like it was like, okay, well, maybe the girl said that I did or said something.
Right.
But I have proof of things that they said and did. So we met with the administration and they told me, the coach would never and the girls would never say or do these things. I had the coach recorded. So I had proof of like when she said, good, bad, or otherwise, right, wrong, or otherwise. Um, but they were, circling around them. And, when I told them about the underage drinking and everything, it was still like, okay, well, we'll look into it. And we're going to take it very seriously if we find it. And just as a side note, they did find find out that, the girls had been drinking. And they told my family and I, like, yes, we're holding this to the highest of like we're prioritizing it, where they're gonna be, reprimanded. And once it got to the lawsuit point and like we can retrieve like all the emails concerning me and the whole situation, we found where that same athletic director said in an email to the coach, like, oh, well, this is just going to stay in-house. He specifically said this is no big deal. This is not going to follow them anywhere. Like, we're saying we're doing this, but again, it's not going to follow them anywhere. And we go bring it back to the other girl. She was going to get turned into the cops. You didn't threaten any of them with getting turned into the cops, but it's going to stay in-house. So again, like we met with the administration, and they, were supporting her and supporting the girls. And even with that, I was still trying to stay in shape because in my head, I was still going to be allowed to try out. And I had begun to practice with the club team on campus. And some of the girls that were on the club team were managers for the basketball team. And I didn't have any issue with them, so I wasn't concerned with it. But the third time that I went to go play with the club team, all of the girls showed up, all 14 of the other girls, and they blocked all the exits and like crossed their arms. And, I don't care about admitting it at this point, but I was afraid because in my head, I'm like, 2, 3, maybe I could have took, but 14, I'm getting dogs. So, I was afraid. And then my
Wait,
phone had died.
where is the why are they intimidating you? Like, why did they feel the need to show up? Because of the
The
lawsuit? Like, they
investigation. Well,
realized.
that hadn't happened yet, but the
I see.
investigation and then them getting in trouble for it. And I guess the fact that I
Okay.
wasn't like, the other girl who ended up being depressed and staying in her room and just, like tail between her legs, let it
Yeah.
go, that I was
Well,
standing
everyone
up. And now
processes
it's like,
differently. Everyone
right.
processes
And
trauma and bullying and, those kind of things differently. So that's why you're here with me, because I feel like at one point there's two ways that this goes. Usually, I mean, there's multiple ways that it goes, right? But ideally there's two ways that bullying goes. A, people stand up for themselves, or they move on, or they heal, or whatever. Or and then there's the really dark side to it, where we lose people to suicide, or
Mhm.
we lose people to mental health, or whatever comes from bullying, whatever side effects or trauma or end result comes from bullying. It's not good. And her
Right.
retreating and those kind of things, like, you know thank
And her
you.
situation was different. Like, I can't say that
Right. No, no, no,
it's
no.
because I
I
didn't
mean,
live on
thank
campus.
you. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here, because the whole point of this is to help anyone that is maybe on that side, like her, that
Yeah.
maybe doesn't have the warm fuzzies, right? Because at some point the
Right.
warm fuzzies went away, and you're like, this, I'm done. Like, no more. Right. So the girls
Right.
have you blocked in the room. What happens then?
So, I was afraid, and like, I went and like try to like sync to my phone, like, maybe text my mom, because the place that the gym is situated is like in the middle kind of the building, and it's late
Mhm.
at night, so all the lights are out. So it's like once you get outside of that, you know, you don't know. And like I guess that had never crossed my mind before, just, lottie doody, like I'm gonna go whatever way. But then my phone was dead and this happened. And so then I was like, you know what? Well, if they came for a show, I'm gonna give them a show. So then, like, I started showing out, started making shots, getting steals, all that, because I got you. You want a show. But then I guess like 5 minutes or so before things came to an end, all of them left. And, I was so caught up in, trying to play at that point. I'm like, well, that was dumb, Jazz, because now you don't know what exit they went out of. You don't know which one to avoid. Um, and again, like I went back to my bag. I don't know if they thought, maybe my phone was worried, whatever. Like I acted like I was on my phone. And that made them decide not to confront me. But I ended up getting into the car and I told my mom like the situation, like I broke down crying, and she called the school and she said if they ever look at a hair on her head again, it's gonna be epic. My mom's a mama bear.
Yeah.
Um and they never followed me after that. But it was just sad because I had a friend on campus, and he was just a friend, but he after that, like he was so concerned for me, he felt the need to like stay with me until my mom came, like whether it was like for class or whatever. And he's like this big white guy, and his name's Daniel. I'm probably gonna send this to him. But Daniel was a blessing because I was afraid at that point. Like I said, like the other girl, she got, threatened, she got called the N-word on like that anonymous app. And I'm just like, nothing is being done to find out who's threatening her.
Right.
Um, I'm afraid too. So the fact that somebody had to step in, and I don't know if he was like 19 or 20, that's ridiculous to be that young and be concerned for somebody else's well-being because nothing else is being done about it. But so I ended up leaving the school after that semester, and I was depressed for a long time. I was lay in the bed and, just cried because, as superficial as it seems, when you've been doing a sport or a hobby, anything like your whole life, and then it's taken away from you, when, I'm far from perfect, but I didn't do the drinking, I wasn't bullying, I wasn't, saying anything racist. It just get taken away because somebody else decided they don't like my skin tone. I was depressed. And it got to the point, where my mom like came in my room with the Ben and Jerry's because I love Ben and Jerry's. And she was just like, you can keep crying if you want to, like that is definitely your business. But if you want to affect change, then you're gonna have to do something different. And she made me think about all the other, not just Black girls, but other minorities that might have went there and wanted to play and they faced the same thing I did, but they didn't have, one, my parents that, do anything and everything for me. And like were my biggest cheerleaders and my rocks. And they might not, they might have joined in with drinking or whatever the case may be. And now they're being able to be blackmailed. So, she had that conversation with me, and that like set like a tiny spark in me to the point that I've decided to play in that summer league I told you about. Like I had seen them the year before. And so I was like in my head, okay, this is going to be like my mini goal for now. Like just, train really hard. And then when I play against them, like this is going to be like my moment, and they're going to have to shake my hand, and you're going to have to recognize me as a competitor and that I am talented. Like all that was in my head, like with every, lap I was running, with every push-up, whatever, that was in my head. So only about 4 of the Mary Washington girls like actually played on the summer team. But the day that they played my team, the entire team showed up.
Wow.
They brought their
Okay.
friends, they brought their family wanting to see me lose. And so my team was up by 20. And so with about a minute or 30 seconds left, all of the Mary Washington girls check out, and all of them, their posse included, leave the court, so they don't, one, have to shake my hand, or 2, see me win. And I'm just like, I was hurt, because I'm like, I did all this, and like, it was for me, but it was for this moment too, that you were gonna have to recognize me and shake my hand, and they didn't do that. So after that, I got like my full fire back, and I decided I do want to do college basketball again. And I found out about a tryout at Bowie State. Bowie. I always have to do that. I'm sorry. Gotta represent HBCU. But I heard about that, and I was like, okay. And the thing is, like I said, Mary Washington is only like 30 minutes away. Bowie is about an hour 15 on a good day. DMV traffic can get crazy real quick. Yeah. But my parents didn't want that fire, that love of ball, to be taken away from that
Absolutely
whole situation. So they told me, we will pay for your school. We're gonna figure out, put some money together, pay for your school this first semester. And you got to get whatever done to get a scholarship. And I walked on. I got on the starting lineup. I got a basketball and track scholarship, and I had a 4.0. So, I was really afraid of going.
Sorry, I just got to pause for the cause for a minute.
Thank you. But, I was afraid, because I was like, I couldn't even get a tryout at a D3, and then I'm trying to walk on at a D2. But, I did it. And then, I ended up getting an injury, so I couldn't, play the next year. But I know that everything has a purpose, because that next year is when the lawsuit got really serious. And if I would have been having, practice 3 times a day with games and then tests and everything, I wouldn't have been able to focus on the lawsuit. But I was. And so a lot of things came out in the lawsuit, but ultimately it came to the point where they wanted to settle for $250,000. And I said, no. I said, don't give me any money. Just let me come back and play. Because I know if you let me come back and play, I'm gonna break all their...
with these people?
But in my mind, but in my mind.
Oh, I get it. Because you have this idea in your mind of the perfect career path through the collegiate, system.
Well, I was just thinking, like, if any other minority comes through here and like they face whatever I face, they're gonna see, like, you can come through and you can, be the top of the top, and you can, break records and everything.
Yeah.
But the school said no. So then I decided to settle, because if we would have went to court, the only thing they could have gave me was money, and I wanted to have change. So part of the settlement was that they do have to recruit minorities more heavily. And like I said, she was there, the coach was there for 12 years, and she had 2 play for her. It's been about 6-7 years, and she's had 8, and they've been like different positions. And they have to do, sensitivity training for the sports teams, which, I think, it helps in the case that you can't say that you didn't know ABC, whatever is offensive, and maybe think more so about other people's feelings. But but that was, the change that I hope that I left. And maybe it created more of an opportunity and line for other people. But even people after everything settled, the Washington Post covered it, the Root covered it. I had all these different people talking about it. And I had people reach out to me, like some from the older generation, like, back in my day, we couldn't stand up for these kind of things, and we just had to take it. So to see that the new generation can affect change and stand up, it was therapeutic in a way for them. But then also kids that were like still in high school, their parents reaching out to me, like, I showed this story to my kid, I told my kid about this, so that they know if they have this kind of bullying. And especially, like, with sports, like I said, it can get really hectic when you get to college sports and fighting for spots and money. That
absolutely
one, they don't have to, you don't have to, one, subject yourself to being the blunt of somebody's joke just to fit in, to get along, but two, don't give in to whatever form of hazing that might be, whether it's underage drinking, whether it's, whatever.
Bullying, racism, whatever.
Right. So like that's kind of what led me down the path that I'm on now. I am anti-bullying advocate. I speak to different youth groups, I speak to churches, and just let them know, because I know that, suicide and other forms of self-harm, it's running rampant these days.
It
And
really is.
I don't think that there's a big, emphasis placed on mental health, because with me, like, it was a lot. But at the end of the day, since I didn't live on campus, I got to come home every day and get a breather. And like I said, with Kate, like the other girl in the other situation, she was on campus all the time, and she was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, where she had to go to the hospital. And I just know a lot of kids stay on campus and they wouldn't have had the luxury that I did. And even if we say it's high school, there's cyberbullying. So bullying is very rampant, again, same word, in today's
So let me ask
society.
you a question. Do you think that some people are more likely to be bullied?
I'd say yes, but then it's also people now just bully you for anything, because I would say, we could say race, we could say, sexual preferences, we can say religion, we can say different, types of handicaps. But even when you don't, when you like, even when you are how some people would view you as, I don't want to say popular, but in a better position, like referencing the shooting that took place in Texas a week or two ago. That kid was bullied and beat up and had his items stolen from him because the other kids were jealous that he came from a well-income family, right? Um, and he got bullied for it. He got beat up for it, and the school wouldn't step in. And then, he came to the school with a gun, and that's just really horrible. And I think it's very sad that kids can't rely on the school system to protect them
Or
and
even
to
just
keep
their
themselves.
peers? I think at some
Right.
point we have to stop tolerating that the adults are responsible in the situation, because
Right.
for me, when I was bullied, it wasn't, I was thankful that like I had someone there that was, it's a little tricky for me because I was bullied by my siblings, you know? And so I didn't have the mom, if you will, to, she'd be like, work it out, you kids work it out. The bullying at school was a little different because I didn't have the advocacy, right? That
Right.
maybe some communities have. And I think that's where my tolerance starts to end, is that we've got to stop standing by and watching shit go down and not speaking up. Like the fact that you were in a team setting with other adults and other people. I mean, at some point, somebody had to feel some type of way by the comments. And whether laughing was the reaction or their way of processing, that's besides the point. But just saying, hey, like, this is inappropriate, you guys. Like, that's all it takes
Yeah.
is, hey, I'm offended. No matter how much air you need to suck out of the room or how many 30 seconds of courage you need to find, like at some point we have to say, yo, this isn't okay. And for me, I was in college here. I'm not going to name the school just because there's nothing going to benefit from it, but I had a professor that was a baby boomer. She was older, and I think that there's a certain systemic racism that comes with generational, society. And
For sure.
we got to the section in American history of the civil rights movement, and Black American history and Jim Crow laws, and we're learning all this stuff about this battle, and I had to know this specific date and who won this war, and I'm like, that's cool that a date happened and somebody won a war and we gained Texas or whatever that was, and we had to spend weeks and days on these battles. And we get to the civil rights movement and she tries to skip over it with a film and a afternoon discussion. And I was like, I looked around the classroom and I was like, that's it? That's it.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch a 15-minute video and we're gonna have a small discussion, and that's all we're gonna talk about the civil rights movement. And everybody's just crickets in the room. And I'm like, this is college level, you know, and there's people who aren't white in the room, but I'm like, how is that a thing? And she's like, well, we need to keep on track with the what do they call the itinerary? The stimulus.
Syllabus, yeah.
Syllabus. Stimulus. Yeah, I want that money. The syllabus. And I was like, but this is important. This is what changed American history. This is part of why you can be a teacher. Like, there's a lot of rights that came out of this, not just, you know, Black American rights, minority rights, but women's rights became to flourish in that moment as well. And yeah, it just I think it's important that we speak up. So thank you that you spoke up. Do you have any advice for anybody who's currently being bullied?
Well, I also want to say thank you for speaking up because I'm being serious.
I was pissed. I was like, wait, we talked for a week about a battle that, you know, gained us Texas or whatever, and we're gonna skip over the civil rights movement? Like,
right. But I'm saying, like, situations like that, like having allies really is important because
well, I think
that helps affect change too in places where, you know, somebody like me or, you know, the other people might have been afraid to stand up having you. And it's like, if you're outraged by it, you know, other people should take that into account too. So I'm being serious, like, really thank you, because whether you know it or not, like, that probably meant a lot to the other people in the room.
Well, I mean, we just created, and I don't want to get off topic here, but we just created a federal holiday for Juneteenth to, you know, recognize the struggles that happened in Oklahoma and how that whole situation went down. But then on the other side of that, we're not allowed to talk about critical race theory, and they made it illegal in several states. Like, wait a minute, you just made it a holiday, but now we can't talk about it? Like, what's happening?
Like, where did the holiday come from? But yeah, like, I know, you know, critical race theory is, but I mean, is a completely different thing. But it's just like, even with that, like, that's tied into it, because why aren't we learning about these things? Like, what is the issue? But even still, like, I remember reading like the Trail of Tears is like out of a lot of history books, and it's like,
yeah,
why? You know, history is important, so we don't repeat it. That's why you have to know your history. But again, like, all of that is systemic. All of that comes down to, we need to know our history so we don't
agreed
repeat it. But
so what advice do you have for youngins or adults or anybody who might feel like they're being bullied, cyber bullied, by their peers, by their family?
I would say, if you can, reach out to an outside source, whether it's somewhere like in the workforce or, you know, with my situation, you know, stay on the straight and narrow so somebody can't point to, well, you know, even though you did this little thing, like, you deserved everything else, or you can't speak out about it because now you're going to get painted in a certain light. But to also stay strong and to be aware of your mental health. I think that I've said it like a whole bunch of times, but I don't think we prioritize it. And then it's like everything comes down on you, all the depression, all everything. And then you just feel so alone. So I think people need to utilize therapy more, just because having like an unbiased source that is there really just to keep you in your best mental health space is very important. And I would say, I guess, just if it's in your family, like, that makes it tougher, because, you know, if you have like something like a parent that's not going to step in or just like get over it, just realize how you feel is validated. I think that's a big issue too, when we get invalidated with our feelings and we're told it's not that big a deal, and then it makes you question everything else. Like, just realize how you feel is important, and whatever you're being bullied for, whatever the case may be, even if it's siblings, even if it's family and they think it's not that big a deal, if it hurts, it hurts, and you should say when it hurts, and, you know, remove that yourself from that situation. Even if you can't remove yourself from that home, like, leave that room, leave whatever that negative space is to keep yourself happy.
I love it. As far as today goes, waking up this morning, what's the biggest lesson you've learned up until this point?
So specifically today,
or just over your journey, you know, because I'm sure you've had a lot of lessons along the road, but what's the biggest lesson that you've learned up to this point?
I guess just kind of how I feel and how I felt was important throughout the lawsuit. With lawyers, I think, their main goal is to kind of like make you like obviously to prove their point, but to make you question yourself and, the validity of everything. And I think with myself, like I kind of struggled with that. Like I knew it hurt and I knew I was mad, but when you consistently hear it, well, it was a joke or it's not that big a deal, you start to question yourself. So standing in your why and knowing that whatever your why is important, but also never underestimate what you're going through and how that can affect somebody else. So, there were times where I
Preach.
thought my situation wasn't important and, okay, it's just this one thing. But then on a larger scale, to hear about all these different stories that people went through and sometimes you have to go through struggles to make things better for other people and to be that role model or be whatever the case may be. So I would just saying that like one of the biggest things that my mom says is her mission is to leave the world a better place than she found it. And so I kind of try to take that motto to like, I might have experienced like bad things, but hopefully with what I can do, I haven't reached like the pinnacles I want to reach yet, but I want to reach like such things that it does affect a bigger change and other people won't have to go through it, like not just at that specific school, but like on a bigger scale, or know that there are resources out there to where, again, like you don't have to turn to self-harm or whatever the case may be.
I love it. Who has been your most influential person through this journey? Do you have like a mentor, someone that you've sought guidance from, or someone maybe athletic, fame, or just anybody? Do you have someone that you've kind of looked towards for influence and inspiration?
My mama. Like, like of course, like, just her for like being there throughout everything and, just to like things that again, like I wasn't thinking of and just being my cheerleader, like, both my parents, but my mom was like really, ground zero with it. But as far as like celebrities and like even past like my situation, I say like Colin Kaepernick, and he retweeted my story when Washington posted it. And I was so happy because like to me, like, you have this person that on a global scale, like everybody was telling him how he felt wasn't important and it's, everything else. And he still like stood in his why. Like that was amazing to see. But then other people too, like, it wasn't relevant when I had my situation because it was way before, but even like Serena Williams and Naomi, because like prioritizing their mental health and just being like an advocate of, not succumbing to just going along with the crowd, but this is me, this is important to me, so I'm going to stick with it. So just different people like that, you know, stay grounded in whatever their cause or focus is.
Do you identify as an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm definitely introverted. Like before everything, like being and talking to somebody would make me so terrified. But now it's like it's kind of had to come out because I feel like sharing my story is important and I feel like it has a purpose. So I've had to make myself come out of it. But I'm definitely introverted. Like, I was that kid that whenever we had to do our little speeches in front of class, I would just be like this. Let me talk really fast. But now, like, I'm having to branch out of that because, gotta talk, gotta share.
You got an important message to share and an important story to bring awareness to. Where do you think the world will, or what do you think the world will look like in 5 years?
In 5, ideally, I hope it is a nicer place. I hope that with people being their honest selves and us becoming more aware of different struggles and whether that's like mental health or whatever the case may be, we become more compassionate and a more healing space for any and everybody, whatever it is that they're going through. Ideally, that is what I hope.
I love that. I hope for that as well. Is there a question that maybe I didn't ask? If you were in my shoes, is there a question that I haven't asked you that you would have asked if you were me?
Nah, girl, you asked them all. You was on it. I appreciate you.
If you guys just tuned in, you missed a great conversation about bullying, about racism, and most importantly, about teamwork and speaking up for the individual that maybe doesn't have the voice. You're amazing. I love your story. I love the fact that you are an introvert and you're conquering the world one podcast at a time. You do have some podcasts coming up. Where can we tap in with you? Where can people learn more about your story and your message?
All my handles are just Jasmine Orsted on Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case may be. And if you are somebody going through bullying and you need a cheerleader or whatever, definitely feel free to reach out to me.
I love it. Jasmine, you're amazing. Some things I want to mention and then we'll wrap up here. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I would the only thing I would want to add is that I don't think people place a big emphasis on mental health. If you just go and look out the statistics and, check those out, I think it is really a heartbreaking thing. So whether, you might be in a good place and you think whatever comments aren't that important, just think about it for a second or two longer and realize you don't know whatever somebody else goes home to or has to deal with. And even if you're not making comments, if you see somebody else, like the bystander effect is real. Like, I forgot whatever the percentage is, but when somebody steps in and says, hey, this isn't cool, like, it dramatically affects bullies in general, but just conversations or whatever continuing. So just think about, even if you aren't making that, just holding the next person accountable can do a lot, even more so than you know.
I love it. Make sure you guys search #SeeMe. Head over to stompoutbullying.org. Their message is end the hate, let's change the culture. And I think that's the best thing we can do is end the hate and change the culture of bullying, racism, all of it. I sure appreciate you being here, Jasmine. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and your story. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys stay tuned for volume 10. I have a Persian rapper on volume 10. Her name is Mana. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Peace.